Hey there. Things in my life have taken a turn for the worse, and I never imagined this. I need some advice, specifically from people who are not biased. My husband, Jake, not his real name, and I met through a mutual friend, my work colleague. Ours was a whirlwind romance, something I'm getting wary about these days. Probably should have given more time to think. Anyway, it was a very rushed relationship, and both of us didn't wait enough to get to know one another. We quickly tied the knot. Coming to his mom, my mother-in-law, she was, I don't know how to put this, very stiff. Yeah, she was very stiff about everything. I just thought that she hated me. A very stereotypical mother-in-law, daughter-in-law dynamic, and didn't give much thought to it. Of course, my husband added a lot of fuel to the fire to construct that story. He always badmouthed his mom in front of me and told me clearly to not engage in any sort of communication with her. I personally never found her doing or saying anything offensive. She seemed like a very graceful, wise woman who I would like to be friends with, but given our situation, that wasn't possible. Anyway, I saw her once or twice during the wedding plans and never got a chance to speak. As the day of my son's birthday celebration arrived, I was filled with excitement and anticipation. I had been looking forward to this special occasion for weeks, eager to create wonderful memories with my loved ones. Little did I know that my mother-in-law's arrival would bring an unexpected twist. Initially, I had been unsure whether to invite my mother-in-law, as my husband had mentioned that she harbored some resentment towards me. He believed she wouldn't want to come, given the strained relationship between us. However, to my surprise, she showed up at the door holding a small gift for my son. Her arrival caught me off guard, and I could sense an air of tension surrounding her. Her face was stern, and there was a hint of anger in her eyes. I greeted her warmly, trying my best to set a positive tone for the day's celebrations. And then I saw this kid with her. I didn't recognize the child. As I approached her, she looked at me and then shifted her gaze to my husband. With a firm voice, she uttered words that hung in the air. "Should I say the truth, or will you finally take some responsibility?" Confusion washed over me, leaving me standing there, unsure of what was happening. My mind raced with questions, trying to piece together the puzzle of my husband's relationship with his mother. With my husband frozen in place, my mother-in-law's words hung in the air, leaving us all on edge. She continued, her voice filled with a mix of frustration and disappointment. "I'm tired of your lies. It's not fair for you to celebrate one son's birthday while completely neglecting the other." My mind raced, trying to comprehend the weight of her statement. Confusion and panic welled up within me as I quickly gasped, jumping to the conclusion that my husband had been unfaithful. Thoughts of betrayal and anger swirled through my mind, threatening to overwhelm me. But before I could give in to my fears, my husband's facade crumbled. Tears streamed down his face as he broke down, and his voice filled with a mix of guilt and vulnerability. "I am the father," he confessed, his words slicing through the tension in the room. "But it's not what you think." My heart ached, torn between the relief that my husband hadn't betrayed me and the weight of the situation unfolding before us. As my husband tried to compose himself, he reached out, his trembling hand seeking mine. "There's so much I need to explain," he pleaded, his voice laced with remorse. "Please let me tell you everything." At that moment, I saw the vulnerability in his eyes, a raw honesty that compelled me to listen. So, as it turned out, my husband had been married before. It was something he chose to keep hidden from me. My mother-in-law, unable to keep the secret any longer, spilled the beans. It seemed that my husband had entered into a previous marriage with an older woman. They even had a child together. But their relationship was filled with infidelity, and eventually the woman cheated on him. She didn't seem to care about their child either, as she left them both behind. My husband had been left to carry the weight. It took me some time to process this newfound information. I look back at the moments shared between my husband, my mother-in-law, and myself, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. The regret on my husband's face confirmed his failure to disclose this part of his life to me. My mother-in-law, under the mistaken assumption that I already knew about the child, believed that I had accepted it. But the reality was quite different. My husband, fearing that I wouldn't understand, had decided to bury his past. He kept it locked away, never revealing the fact that he had been previously married and had a child. He always intended to tell me at some point, but that opportunity never arose. As time went on, the weight of the secret only grew heavier. A heavy silence settled in the room as we all grappled with the implications of this revelation. Emotions swirled within me, anger, hurt, and confusion. How could he have kept such a significant part of his life hidden from me? Taking a deep breath, I mustered the courage to voice my thoughts, tinged with disappointment and a desire for clarity. I asked him why he hadn't trusted me enough to share this with me. The question hung in the air, waiting for an answer. Tears welled up in my husband's eyes as he reached out, gripping my hands tightly. He confessed that he had been afraid that I wouldn't understand, and afraid that revealing his past would change how I saw him. He wanted to protect himself from his past mistakes, and that's why he had chosen to keep it hidden. His words carried a sense of vulnerability, and I could see the genuine remorse etched on his face. But understanding his fears didn't erase the hurt, and rebuilding trust would take time and effort. It was clear that we had a long journey ahead of us, filled with uncertainty. Feeling overwhelmed by the weight of the revelation, I knew I needed some space to gather my thoughts and process everything that had transpired. I made the difficult decision to leave, informing my husband that I needed time apart. He pleaded with me, begging me not to go, but I stood firm, explaining that I wasn't seeking a divorce at that moment, just some time to reflect. However, as I confided in my own family about the situation, they surprisingly urged me to stay. They believed in the power of forgiveness and second chances, encouraging me to work through the challenges with my husband. It was a conflicting moment for me, torn between my emotions and the advice of my loved ones. During this internal struggle, my mother-in-law, who I had never really had a proper conversation with before, stepped in unexpectedly. She sensed my distress and came to my aid, offering her support and suggesting that I could live with her for as long as I needed. Her gesture touched me, and at that moment I quietly agreed to her proposition. AITA for leaving? What would you do? Because some people, including some of my friends and my family members, are asking me to forgive my husband as he has the best intentions. But I'm not quite convinced. Also, the fact that he lied about such a big thing would anyway come up to haunt us one day or the other. Update 1. So, with a mix of uncertainty and gratitude, I can find myself moving into my mother-in-law's home. It was a significant step, seeking solace and shelter in a place I had never expected to find myself. Yet I realized that sometimes unexpected alliances could emerge in the most challenging times. Living with my mother-in-law provided me with a sense of stability and a safe space to heal. We gradually started to engage in conversations, learning more about each other's lives, experiences, and perspectives. It was an unexpected opportunity for growth and understanding, bridging the divide that had previously existed between us. I have been spending time with the other kid as well, who is surprisingly jolly all the time, like he has this golden retriever energy. I feel so bad thinking about how both of his parents have almost abandoned him, but my mother-in-law hasn't, and that's something respectable. Update 2. My son and his older brother have become quite close in the last few days as I'm living with my mother-in-law. My husband visited yesterday and spent some time with both of his kids, although his older boy got surprised, probably because his dad never told him that he has a brother and a stepmom, also known as me. But it's nice to have a good family dynamic with both my mother-in-law and my stepson. Things are quite good, and I'm okay with it, except for my husband, because I just can't accept this. It baffled me. Update 3. Hello, Redditors. Thank you for the comments and thanks for supporting me in my decision. I have decided to continue living with my mother-in-law and my 2 kids, including my stepson. I communicated with my husband and told him clearly that I am not sure how much time it will take for me to move past everything because he lied about something really big, and I'm not okay with it. He said that he understood and respects my decisions and just hopes that I will find it in my heart to forgive him. I have not restricted him from meeting with his kids, though. NTA and accepting the other kid is such a sweet thing. Of course, he has no fault in everything. Your husband should definitely have shared everything with you before getting married to you. NTA and how cutely you explain the golden retriever energy of your stepson. It is really interesting to know how he and your son are bonding. A healthy relationship is what we all want. You should take as much time as you want and not let anyone influence you to forgive your husband. Next story. I work in an office and share it with a couple of people. I like to snack. I eat through the day instead of having a huge lunch. I just have a little snack and watch an episode of my current show. I always bring it from home on Mondays. This week it was delicious cheese, crackers, apples, cereal, and oh so wonderful Jell-O. A coworker of mine, let's call her Maddie, from a different office, saw my snacks and knows I snack and mentioned how much I brought and they look good. I said thanks and started putting it away in my drawer and fridge, leaving the Jell-O out because I was going smack on that amazing strawberry jiggle. I left work early on Monday and had left my Jell-O out. I came in Tuesday and my office mate said, "Lock your drawers because people are trying to take your stuff." She, the real MVP. I 100% don't mind sharing when people ask, but to just take my stuff without permission? As an only child, that's a huge no-no for me. My office mates know this. They also bring in snacks for themselves, and we often time treat it like elementary school lunch trading snacks during our lunch period. A different coworker, Steve, came in and tried taking my Jell-O off my desk. Our MVP said, "No, no, don't take her shit." Steve said, "She shares, I can take it." MVP, "No, that's her snack from her home. If you want snacks, bring it in like she does." Steve left defeated. Maddie comes in, "Can I have a key to your fridge? I want cheese." MVP once again guarded the goods. I locked up all my snacks. Maddie comes in a couple of hours later taking Tums out of my drawer. This time our hero cannot stop her. Tuesday I come back and lock up all my snacks. I have to get up and move around constantly. One of the times I wasn't there once, again, Maddie comes creeping in. She was not successful. She asked me why I have everything locked. I said, "Because thieves come in and take stuff without permission." She got really silent and walked away. Though my mom said she might have thought it was okay since I share, and said I was a butthole. Reddit, am I? Isn't it basic human knowledge that taking stuff without permission is stealing, even if I share? Also, everyone has my number. If they're truly hungry, they can text me and ask. Edit. Thank you to everyone that confirmed I was in fact not the a-hole. To those criticizing my post for bad English, punctuation, etc., English is my second language and I typed this out on my phone. I can't believe she has the nerve, LOL. She literally asked her why her drawers are locked. Buy a key. I work in an office and have never opened another person's drawer to eat their stuff. Or ask a coworker to open the fridge because I want someone else's food just because that person left for the day. NTA, people are unreal. NTA, you are not a butthole. I don't know what made these entitled coworkers of yours think that your snacks are for everyone. Even if someone gave me some of their snacks at work and made it seem like they're fine with sharing, I wouldn't go to their area and take their snacks when they aren't there. And wow, the nerve of her asking for the key? Why does she think it's locked in the first place? Bears? Lock it all up and don't give the key to anyone except maybe your MVP snack guardian coworker. Next story. I have a 7-year-old son who started exhibiting a lot of negative behaviors at school roughly a year ago. He's had tons of specialists evaluate him through the school system. He's fine when he's at home, and I truly don't have many issues with him here, but at school it's totally different. Running away, refusing to stay inside classrooms, hiding, yelling, etc. We finally got him an IEP and things started to look up. The specialist came to the conclusion that he has severe anxiety and PTSD. Now, this was a bitter pill to swallow as a parent. I left his father when he was only 3 years old due to some not so friendly behaviors that happened in front of my child. There's a no contact order. His rights have been terminated and he's been charged. It was only happening to me, but my son saw it. I was stupid enough to believe that he wouldn't remember. I don't remember any of my childhood, so it was an assumption based off personal experience. Well, he obviously remembers, and the specialists have stated that the amount of chaos within the school is very triggering for him, and they have limited his contact with heavily socialized environments due to this. He stays in the special classroom. He was doing great until today when they tried getting him to go to music class and something triggered him. I ended up being called to come in and help. When I got there, this teacher that I had never met was sitting with my son. As soon as he saw me, he ran towards me crying, and this teacher started yelling at him, told him to sit down and start listening for once, and proceeded to very loudly tell me he was being rotten all day, and continued to tell him to sit down and listen whenever he tried hugging me. I lost my shit entirely. I had my son go into the office to see one of his favorite peers, and I let this bitch have it, telling her she must be the worst kind of human to think that her behavior was in any way appropriate and that she had better stay far away from my son, or I will make sure she doesn't have a job in the near future. When I left, she was crying, and now I feel terrible. Edit. Adding some info that others have mentioned, this teacher was the substitute for the IEP classroom. She went against his IEP care plan and tried forcing him to go to music class with 20 plus other students versus go by his care plan, which clearly states he is to be put in groups of 2 to 3 other kiddos with IEPs for all his studies. The IEP has been in effect for over a month, and this is the first time he's had an episode since being in the program and could have been avoided had she cared to take 2 seconds to read his individual care plan. I was also told by the principal, whom I called and reported this to, that this teacher had been briefed on my son's situation, so she was fully aware how triggering even raising her voice to him was. She didn't care, obviously, or she wouldn't have been yelling at him to begin with. And yes, she actually did call him rotten. So not only was her voice raised through the entire altercation as my kid was crying, but she was also not letting him hug me and calling him names. He's in therapy. NTA. As a former teacher, his teacher was not professional, and I don't say this lightly. I was an elementary ed teacher and a special ed teacher, and I'm sorry she had no self-control and took out her frustrations on your son. If she thinks what she did was okay, then I hate to think what she's saying to your son privately. NTA. She was crying? Good. She should feel even worse after willfully disregarding your son's IEP. Maybe it's because I've been a preschool teacher for more than a decade and because I'm neurodivergent. But I'd be hesitant to send any kid, especially a kid with an IEP, into a crowded and loud environment without preparation, for myself and for my kids. She sent your child into a room with too many people doing too many different things at the same time. WTF? Does she think would happen? And she had the nerve to call your child rotten? NTA. Yelling should be reserved for immediate danger, running into traffic. Absolutely no reason the teacher should be yelling at an already distraught child, especially one with an IEP. Was there a more diplomatic approach on your end? Probably not. But for real, I'd be doing the same thing. Zero patience for adults being cruel to children, especially when the child's in their care. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.